Players Limited GM Motorsport Series has been ruled over by a single man. Richard Spenard holds the record for all-time earnings, fastest qualifier awards, and most victories. Richard ended 1990 on a winning note. He capped off the Eastern Division Championship with a well-earned victory in the $75,000 shootout, beating the best drivers from both the East and the West. With the paint still drying on his #1 Camaro, King Richard let everyone know he intends to continue his rule, winning the first race of the 1991 season at Mosport Park. But can he keep his throne here at the crown jewel of motor racing, the Montreal Grand Prix?
This is the GM Motorsport Hour. Brought to you by Players Limited, General Motors of Canada Limited, Quality GM Parts, the expert choice, and by Sony, the one and only.
Can you imagine opening a racing show from the back of the grid? Well, that's where King Richard is, in fact, starting, at the very back of this grid at the Grand Prix in Montreal. With the penalty, he will not be with the front runners. In fact, the entire field will be ahead of King Richard today. What is he going to do about that?
I have a lot of experience racing, and I'm very calm behind the wheel, and I can analyze the situation maybe better than some of them, and I have the speed and the precision to do well. So some people are catching up, but maybe I have a few more years to be the king.
Richard will have to work today to make his way through this large grid. With a rundown of the entire field, here's my colleague, Eric Hollow.
Thanks, Jim. Another large 30-car field will start today's race. Richard Spenard will start on row 15, penalized for a catalytic converter that failed inspection. John Kyle Jr., the ex-drag racer, shares row 15. Steve Van Flanderen, a Western Series driver, will start row 14. Not far from his Trois-Rivières home, Renaud Hamelin starts in row 14. Sean Grossman, former champion go-karter, will share row 13 with rookie Paul Duckworth, who has shown well in race number 1. Richard Waugh brings his Firebird onto row 12. Western driver Wade Lee will start on row 12. Terry Douglas, in his second year of this series, starts beside Kevin Staples, all the way from Lapcevich, Alberta. Tommy Clark in his Camaro finds himself on row 10, as does Didier Schranen, former motocross racer. Jeff Lapcevich brings his Tim Hortons entry to row number 9, beside brother and teammate Joe Jr. Last year's Rookie of the Year, Chris Davies, starts beside Western Series star Kevin Dowler. Starting his third season, 25-year-old Howie Scannell Jr. Norman Boyer, a rookie to this series, starts on row number 7. Claude Poirier returns to this series after a one-year absence. Another experienced rookie, Jacques Lillian, starts on row number 6. Montreal native Peter Cohen on row number 5. Doug Beatty Jr. will share row 5. Western Series veteran Tony Morris on row number 4. Another series veteran, Robin Buck, starts beside him. Kenny Wilden's 2.08.612 makes him our Sunoco Gold fastest qualifier.
I've reached the point where my natural ability has gotten me to, and now it's time to start working hard for that extra tenth or 2 tenths that's needed to qualify on the pole every time. And I think that comes down to mental toughness and not making the mistakes and being so mentally tough that nothing's going to frazzle you.
Terry Betts with the inverted grid will share row 3 with Kenny Wilden. Terry's teammate and Eastern points leader will start on row number 2, Rob Fellows. Beside Rob, the 1990 Western champion Frank Allers will make a serious run for victory here today. John Cadman Jr. will start in the front row. John won the 1990 Toronto Indy. He performs well on street circuits. Spenard's teammate David Embringham has pole position as a result of Richard's penalty. Dave is a threat to win in any race.
Well, as the field of 30 prepare for the start here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, we'll be right back with the green flag. Welcome back. It's round 2 of the Players Limited GM Motorsports Series, and a huge field lining up. They are ready for this start today.
This is a big race, Jim. You know, everybody wants to do well here from the sponsors. It's a big event. There's got to be a little bit of nervousness. Last year, Robin Buck won. Kenny Wildon was second. David Embringham third. Let's see what happens this time around.
There's no doubt both John Cadman Jr. and David Embringham will want to lead the pack into corner 1. It's a little longer course. They've kind of extended things on the guys this year, so no records to be set here today. Of course, David in the number 2 Motormaster Camaro. He just finished a Players Formula Atlantic race here on this course, so he could well have a little bit of an advantage. He certainly, I guess Eric knows more about the track conditions today than anybody else in this field.
The pace car is off. The order looks very good. They're coming. Green flag. They are racing.
Look at this. John Cadman Jr. with a little bit of an advantage. He's got the nose ahead of Embringham. Now it's Embringham, but no, Cadman one more time. These two really dicing it down into corner number 1. Cadman a little too hot into the corner, blows it away, Eric.
Tires got to be a little cool starting off. What a maneuver, first thing.
There's a great advantage there for David Embringham now to leap into lead. Mind you, it looked like Cadman got back into third. Let's go in car. Have a look at this.
Yeah, he did an excellent job of getting back on the track. You can see he gets in far too into the corner, way too fast, tires cold, off on it, but look at this, beautiful job of getting back into traffic.
Look at this, there's David Embringham though, in the number 2 Motormaster entry. He flashes by, and let's go in car with David now. This is his view of what took place here. There's Cadman in front of him, scoots off to the side for Embringham. It's a beautiful run through corner number 1. He's on his own.
Yeah, here's another look at it now, Jim. Terry Betts, the number 6 car. We see the in-car camera here as they enter corner 1. You can see the chaos in there as Cadman gets a little bit wide. He gets off now, and now all kinds of cars begin to make contact there. Great move for Embringham. A lot of the other cars are going to lose spots in this corner already.
Here we pick up on David Embringham leading the race. John Cadman has fought his way back into second place, and look at this. Ken Wildon now fighting as he can on the outside of the course, but the fact is he's running about 10th right now. He really got beaten up on that start. Now here we're looking at Ken Bowden as we pick up on the tie bounce car. He just conquers Tony Morris, another one of the Motomaster entries from the western part of the series. In fact, he heads up the team in the west, but Wilden manages to put him away. So at least he's regained one spot, but it's going to be quite a chore to get back up to the front runners here today.
Yeah, at least in these early stages when the cars are all bunched together, it's very, very busy. But he's going to have to make his move early because he can't afford to let those cars get too far away from him.
Look how John Cadman Jr. is working on David Empringham. He almost had him in the hairpin. He got right up on him. Now that Emp has found a little bit of breathing space here, John Cadman drops off it a little bit, but still no more than a car length away. And you know he's going to have another go here in just a moment as we watch the rear Sony cam out of David Empringham's car.
John Cadman's had a great start to this year, finished second in the first race at Mosport.
Made his move now. In fact, here he comes and pulls it off. He's back in front. John Cadman Jr. fights his way back into the front of the field, and now David Empringham is back in second. And thank goodness we got the rear-facing camera on the Cadman car as well, because Emp was about to make another move.
Yeah, David Empringham is not going to sit in second place for very long. You know, teammate of Richard Spenard, who had to start at the back of the pack. Empringham knows how to race.
Nice move there by Cadman in the corner, grabs the lead again and bring him right up on his tailpipe, a little aerial view. But the fact is, the drama really comes from the in-car camera shots. Richard Spenard at the back of the grid has one. David Empringham out front. So does Rob Fellows, Terry Betts. In fact, there's 12 all told. The remainder are with folks like Frank Allers out of the west, Kenny Wilden, the Lapceviches both have one, and John Cadman Jr. giving us some great shots here as well.
Number 17, Kenny Wilden, had just an awful start to this, but he's starting to move up through the pack as we see him working on Peter Cohen now.
Cohen, I think, got a little bit of the guardrail there, in fact, or the concrete wall. He sort of bounced off and then back into the track. We're in car with Wilden. Look at that slide. He brings it right over onto the lawn and then back onto the track.
That is some beautiful driving.
Back to the race leaders. Here's John Cadman Jr. In fact, now John is beginning to pull away from the field. It is David Empringham who is falling off the base here. And look out for this Sunoco team. They haven't done much as yet, but I would imagine it's about time for them to start making some moves as well.
Something to think about here, as the cars go off the track, they sometimes bring more debris onto the track. This could cause slippery conditions for the other drivers out there. Rocks, dirt, and things like that.
John Cadman with a nice clear track ahead of him as he leads David Empringham. And an incident further back here, we spot Paul Duckworth. This, of course, number 5 is Terry Douglas going through. He ends up in the sand trap. Not sure who Paul had the problem with. Let's have a look from his vantage point. Oh, he gets nailed right there.
Definitely nailed and into the gravel pit used for Formula One cars. He could have a hard time getting out of that one.
So Paul Duckworth sits stuck there. Number 87, the race leaders, still running very tightly together, led by John Cadman Jr. And there's the tied bounce car. Kenny Wilden swinging into view, running about 8th overall.
After 5 laps completed, David Empringham leads, John Cadman Jr. in 2nd spot, Rob Fellows 3rd, Robin Buck 4th, and Doug Beattie Jr. in 5th spot.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more exciting race action right after this. Welcome back to Lapcevich Villeneuve, round 2 of the Players Limited GM Motorsports Series here at the Formula 1 event in Montreal. John Cadman Jr., the race leader, and Embringham about a car length.
Should mention, of course, identical Camaros and Firebirds. More Camaros than Firebirds, but last year, Robin Buck did win this race in a Firebird.
Well, Robin is not too far back in these race leaders. I'd still look for him to make a move as John Cadman brings the field down. I wonder once more. Let's go in car with David Embringham. I may be wrong. I thought I got a glimpse of some yellow there, but it might have been a local flag. Okay, maybe we're wrong. Hey, Embringham comes right up on
yellow
Cadman
flags
now.
on the corner. There was a yellow flag, and there's another one yet, Jim.
Oh, yeah, these are local yellows that are waving for this Paul Duckworth car that is still sitting in the Formula 1 sand trap. And Embringham got by, I think, and I don't know that he should have at that point.
Now, that would have been illegal to pass in that position. Now, it's not a full course yellow, just a local, but still passing under those conditions would be illegal.
Doug Beatty Jr. running 5th right now. He's got a beautiful view directly in front of him of Rob Fellows making a no. His defensive move does not work. Robin Buck takes him on the outside of the track, gets by. Rob will probably try to fight back in here. The two of them are side by side. Which one is going to win? In the meantime, Beatty tries to get up and make it 3 in a row here. You know what happened is suddenly Rob Fellows has disappeared. Now we see him on the overview. He is sitting behind Doug Beatty. So Rob Fellows lost out on that whole exchange of the trio and kind of watching all the action here. Ken Wilson running very much on his own.
Still concerned about the David Embringham situation. Now, if he did pass under a yellow, that would constitute a penalty. He would have to be brought into the pits with a black flag, and they would have to give him a stop-and-go penalty.
David's not worrying about it right now. He is leading this race, and he is going to hang on to it as long as he can. Now, in the meantime, it's John Cadman's turn to try to fight back, and Cadman is going to do everything he can to size up David Embringham. It has been proven in Dave's past that you can harass this young man. If you stay right there on his tail, eventually he may break. In fact, Cadman tries to make a move, has a little peek there on the outside, but thinks better of it and tucks in behind the gear.
What's going through John Cadman's mind? Now, if he had seen the yellow flag, he's maybe expecting Embringham to head into the pits. If he didn't see it, I guess he'll be racing for it then.
Well, I'll tell you, the two of them are still racing out here. There's no question. So maybe no one else caught it except we observers here. But in the meantime, let's go in car with Kenny Wilden because this young man is doing some marvelous work a little further back in the field. In fact, he's working on Frank Allers, the front-running Western entry here on the Grand Prix circuit in Montreal. By the way, Frank loves this track, but I think he's about to lose a notch to Kenny, who bobs back and forth. Frank Allers, a real veteran, though, not easy to get by. You know, as they come through that final chicane into the front straight, I'm still amazed that Duckworth car is sitting very close to the line. Amazed that someone hasn't maybe tried to just move that out of the way, but it is really embedded there at the moment. Kenny Wilden drops off Allers a little bit, but continues to work on him. Race leaders are by safely. Still David Embringham out front. John Cadman Jr. John, I think, is falling off the pace a little bit, and Robin Buck is now beginning to catch up to him. Look at this. Cadman leads them all back up into the curbing. The rest of the field follow much the same line. Our race leader did not use that curbing, though. It might have been the better move.
We're hoping to get a shot of Richard Spenard, who started way at the end of the pack there, in the last spot, as a matter of fact, because of that penalty. I'm just curious as to where he's gotten to so far in this race.
Knowing Richard, he's doing a fine job carving his way through this field. And oh, look at this other incident. Chris Davies smack in the middle of it, gets his car totally turned around. He'll try to get back into it. He'll lose probably 3-4 spots at least. Let's get back to the mirror cam, though, on Kenny Wilden's tied bounce entry. Again, he continues to work on Frank Allers. Frank is not going to give this one up easily.
Now you look, Kenny Wilden, number 17. He looks on the inside very, very close now. to passing that Motormaster entry.
Look at these local yellows. They're still waving here for this Paul Duckworth car, and I still wonder about that being a problem as this race continues. But the problem right now may be for Frank Allers here from Kenny Wilden. Kenny back in 7th place. He's made a nice charge back after his bobble off the top of this event. But Allers, again, not giving this up even. Frank, by the way, in the past, has raced with some of the world's greats. There's no question. And he's quite... Oh, look at this. Kenny got by. Now we go in car with Frank Allers.
It's important that number 17, Kenny Wilden, got by Frank Allers. It looked at Frank was holding him up a little bit. Now, Kenny Wilden has got a chance to reach the rest of them.
Well, the man Kenny Wilden is going to work on next is the current point leader into our second event here, and that's Rob Fellows in the Sunoco entry. And I say that he may have success there because Rob has really been dropping off the pace. The others have found it not too hard getting by Rob, and I'm not sure that Kenny's going to have much of a problem there either.
Rob Fellows holds the record here in Montreal for qualifying and race lap records, but it looks like Kenny Wilden could have a faster car this time around.
I think it might be a little faster than the blue Sunoco entry just ahead of him. Rob Fellows has been dropping off. Now we go to Duckworth. Look at this. They've got the car back in pit road.
It does not look that bad, actually, either.
Okay, a little peek at the incident one more time from the vantage point of Mr. Lapcevich in number 22. Actually, that's where Jeff nails him. And we watch Jeff Lapcevich spin around in 22. In fact, he knocked our whole camera angle off on that hit, so it was a pretty healthy one.
Yeah, it's important that Duckworth get in there. He's a rookie this year, and there are valuable rookie points up for grabs still. So, no, he's not going to have a chance in winning this race, but he can get some valuable points.
So we got drama happening along pit row and continuing heavy race activity out front with David Empringham continuing to lead in this Players Limited GM Motorsport Series event on track at Montreal. Here are the front runners.
After 8 laps completed, David Empringham leads. John Cadman Jr. second. Robin Buck third. Local favorite Peter Cohen 8th. Kevin Dowler sitting in 9th. We'll be back with more after this.
Hi, I'm Richard Taylor. Stay tuned for the GM Motorsports Hour.
Welcome back to Le Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the Players Limited GM Motorsport Series. Jim Paulson with Eric Hollow, following our leaders, David Empringham and John Cadman Jr. Let's go in car with Doug Beatty Jr. Doug sitting back in 4th place. He wants 3rd. That right now belongs to Robin Buck, just sitting in front in the red Pringles entry. So let's follow Doug in his attack here. Oh, Robin gets right up against that guardrail.
As per usual in these races, early on there's been a lot of incidents. It's caused a lot of debris, a lot of the gravel and dirt to come onto the track. This is causing some slippery conditions in a lot of the corners for these drivers.
I think the Formula One guys are going to find that later on today as well. I don't know, the new configuration here at this course might be a bit of a problem. Doug Beattie, I don't think gaining much ground at this point, but certainly keeping Robin in view.
This is a very hard track on brakes. It wears the brakes down very quickly.
Oh, look at this. Yes, Robin grabs some of that gravel. He spins it right around. Doug Beattie gets up against the wall, gets by safely. Where did Robin Buck go? Let's have another look at this.
Yeah, you can see him, he hits the wall. Now, the damage doesn't look that bad, but look at the way the other drivers maneuver around him, and he kind of goes towards the side of the track where none of the cars are.
Oh, let me salute Robin Buck, too. Handled that car beautifully. Off the wall, right across the track, in the midst of all that traffic, into the gravel. Lost about 5-6 spots, but you can bet that Robin will return. Let's get back to our race leader. Young David Empringham is in front for the Motomaster team. John Cadman Jr., in fact, I think, has lost a car length or two to David. He's got a nice clean run. And right now,
here we are already. The mid-race leader, David Empringham, congratulations, grabs himself a set of Goodyear Eagle radials.
And continues to lead. I think David wants it far beyond this midway point in the race. The Eagles ZR50s, I had mentioned earlier, running much better for these cars this year. They did not set a new qualifying record here. I'm wondering about the race record because they really say these tires are a lot stickier this year.
The other thing is, too, the track is 40 meters longer than it was last year on these cars, and this track is already proven to be very hard on brakes.
David Empringham out front, John Cadman Jr. in second. They seem to be pacing themselves a little bit here and, in fact, maybe helping each other. Let's go in car with David Empringham.
Further back in the pack, the yellow car, trying to check the number, looks like number 39. That would be Steve Van Vlanderen from Manitoba. Tailgate's open. What the heck happened here, Jim?
I don't know, but let's not get the party going. In the meantime, let's look. There's Richard Spenard. You asked about Richard, the number 1 car, the reigning Eastern champion, continues to carve his way. He is now running in 10th place. We had to pick up on him, Eric, because what a dramatic charge from the back of this field, now running in 10th. There's King Richard, looking good. We've also got Frank Allers here, who's the Western champion. Whoa! We'll get back to that. Look at Lapcevich right into the wall.
Number 33, the Tim Horton entry. Heavy contact. Look how dirty this corner is. Slides heavily into the wall. Major contact. Norman Boyer just misses the rear end of that car.
I think Lapcevich just tapped him a touch. Let's go in car, in Lapcevich's car. Let's see what happens. He comes through the corner in that chicane, catches all the rubble. Bang! He's into the wall. That's a heavy hit.
I'm okay. I think it's on fire though or something.
Okay, good news. Joe Lapcevich himself saying he's okay. The fire, I wouldn't worry too much. There's something rare in the Players Limited GM Motorsport Series. The pace car on the track leading this field around. That bunches them right out.
Safety precaution. Obviously, the track is blocked. It's unsafe for the other drivers. Bring the pace car out. But this gets very exciting because now the field bunches up. We have a brand new start to this race. It's got to benefit a lot of these drivers. What a very bad start.
Safety vehicle out to pick up the Lapcevich vehicle, and Richard Spenard, if anyone has benefited, certainly did on this yellow. It bunches him right up with the field, and he's made a marvelous charge back. In fact, let's look at his progression in this race.
Very uncharacteristic for Richard Spenard to be starting in the last spot on the grid. You know, he's the defending champion and also won championships in 86 and 88. By lap number 1, he was 19th. Lap number 3, he was 16th. By lap number 7, he was up to 12th spot. And you have to appreciate it's not easy to pass with these cars and on this track.
Well, of course, he got himself up to 11th, running about 10th overall in the race right now as we keep a close eye on the reigning champion. There's King Richard, but I guess the question is still, can he end up on the podium today here in Montreal? It looks like his Players Limited GM Motorsport progression would indicate he might just do that.
He hasn't had the best success here in Montreal either. He won the very first race in 86. And he was 4th last year, and he qualified the fastest as well.
As the field comes by, we see Kenny Wilden there sitting in 4th place now. He's made a dramatic return, as well as this man, our reigning champion, number 1, Richard Spenard, sitting very nicely for this restart, what will be most exciting.
Most exciting for the fans, to be sure, and for the drivers, a good opportunity to cool the brakes down, cool the tires, maybe grab just a little bit of a rest before the very, very exciting restart. Won't be long now. Number 33, the Tim Horton entry, Lapcevich gets towed away as we get prepared for the restart after 12 laps. David Impringham leads. John Cadman Jr. second, Doug Beatty third. Gallers in sixth spot, Robin Buck in ninth, and Richard Spenard moving up to 10th spot.
Welcome back to Montreal. The lamps are off on the pace car. He'll prepare to exit. We'll get the green. This restart is going to be exciting. It means the whole field are jammed up together one more time. David Impringham, number 2, leads the field through, and on that restart, it's the green flag, and he is way out in front.
That's a huge lead he had even before the green flag dropped. Looked like he was on the power.
Well, look at this, though. Now we have John Cadman Jr. with Doug Beatty Jr. right on him, and Ken Wilden, sort of the trio of the new young generation just hanging back of Impringham. Not that I want to age David today.
Richard Spenard moving steadily through the pack. He's really had his work cut out for him today.
There's Ron Fellows. There's Frank Gallers. He is ahead of Cohen. And then Richard Spenard. He still wants victory today, obviously, fighting his way up toward the front and doing a nice job. Talk about a master. Richard is showing that time.
MotoMaster team showing well here as they begin to move closer and closer. Richard Spenard, I should mention again, is the defending champion. He has a lot of experience.
Yeah, but look at young David Impringham. He got a real joy last year in beating the boss of the team in one of the events. Now David doesn't really have the boss even that close to him. He is maintaining this about a 4-car length distance out front, so David is really in control here.
David knows how to win. He had 3 wins last year and finished 2nd overall in the championship.
By the way, he's a young man who his background is skiing. He loved downhill skiing. Loves that sensation of speed. He's really got it, and he's out there all alone again today. And look at Cohen fighting back on Allers.
David Impringham also doing double duty this weekend, too, with the Formula Atlantic Series.
Really a kick out of this one. Here's Cohen, the local favorite out of Montreal. The blue entry comes by, and now Frank Allers is being challenged one more time. Frank seems to be dropping back in this field. Richard Spenard now making a move. There's the MotoMaster on the inside. He sort of peeked out there, decided better of it. He jumped back in the line, and they really have now begun to string out in a bit of a line.
Spenard did pick up that spot over Kevin Dowler, now sits behind his teammate on the MotoMaster team. Frank Allers, the Western champion, and Richard Spenard, the Eastern champion.
It seems that these hardy veterans are the ones who have really made the gamble. Dowler, though, is really hanging on to Spenard. He's not going to let him get away. I'll tell you, the Westerners are out here in the East trying to show this Formula One gang, you know, the bosses, that they're just as talented as the Eastern crowd.
This is an important race for all these drivers here in Montreal in front of so many fans. Here we're watching Peter Cohen as he leads the MotoMaster team around.
I think a lot of people forget about the fact that Peter Cohen won a Players Limited GM Motorsport event a few years ago, and he would love to do that one more time.
Here we watch the leaders come through. The black number 2 with David Embringham leading. We're watching that battle now with Kenny Wilden, number 17. Did not have the best start, but I think he's got a lot of confidence, and he does have a fast car.
Well, he's not won an event yet at the Players Limited GM Motorsport Series. You know that that bothers him a little bit. He'd love to do that. Maybe that's part of the determination that he's showing here in Montreal today. He wants to get back in that victory stand. I think the best he's done up to this point is about second. In car with Kenny Wilden. This is our Sony wing cam. In fact, it gives you a beautiful perspective of not only the racetrack, the cars in front, but of the wall, and of course the crowd here in Montreal this weekend as well.
Kenny Wilden, Rookie of the Year in 1989, 5th overall last year, and he finished 2nd last year here in Montreal. He's developing a lot of patience and maybe a little maturity.
Kenny's had his moments of frustration, but I'll tell you, generally, I think he's getting very comfortable with the car. He's showing much more confidence in his racing ability. And in fact, Ken Wilden is the subject of today's Players Profile.
Seven-year-old Kenny Wilden is one of Canada's rising young stars of motor racing, but the racing world is relatively new to Kenny.
The first time I really noticed racing in Canada was 1986. The first year Players Series had started, and I was in Vancouver working at Expo 86 as a valet parking attendant, actually, and a scary one at that. And I saw it on TV, and I thought, you know, I didn't even realize there was racing going on. You know, I thought there was IndyCar, and that was about it.
His quick rise to the top of this series is a tribute to both his talent and dedication. This dedication spreads to Kenny's Young Drivers of Canada school.
At 16, when you get your license, you have to have the basics. And a lot of people these days are thinking, well, geez, you know, the big thing is if I get my license on the first try, I'm the best driver because I got it and you took 3 tries to get it. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, if you went to a doctor that took 6 months to get his license as opposed to 4 or 5 years, it seems to get reversed somehow with driving, and it's really not that way. The more time you spend at it, the better you get, the better quality organization you learn with, the better driver you're going to be for the future. And you've got to start the habits. People have to start good habits right from the beginning.
Kenny's quick to point out the difference between driving and racing in his tight bounce number 17 Camaro.
You know, when I get into this car and that, I'm racing, and we're strapped in, and there's a fire system involved with it, and a lot of support people, ambulances, doctors. It's a serious business, and it's not something that should be messed around with. And I think today a lot of people are racing on the streets, and it's just simply not the place to do it. If you want to go racing, come to the track. I mean, it's a heck of a lot less cheaper to rent the track for a couple of days and learn how to race rather than going and smashing up your car on the streets and possibly injuring other people. So that's really what I would like to say to people out there is if you want to race on the track, and if you're going to the corner store, make sure you get there safe.
And we're back to the race action with Kenny Wilden in a serious battle for third with Doug Beatty Jr. just in front and Rob Fellows right behind. Oh, look at the Spenard into the wall.
The black MotoMaster car, the number 1 entry, right into the wall. Very uncharacteristic for Richard Spenard.
You know, I didn't pick up on an incident that looked like Richard just sort of drifted off. Let's go in car with Frank Allers.
Contact with these two is not unusual, but I don't know, Jim. Hard to tell.
Yeah, you watch the Allers windshield sort of bobble there a couple of times, but hard to really spot whether it was direct contact, or Aller's just going over the curbing in the same manner that Spenard did.
For Spenard to go off the track at all, you know he's pushing very, very hard.
Back with our race leaders, David Empringham has got himself a nice lead. John Cadman Jr. has gained about a car length or two, and then it is Doug Beatty and Kenny Weldon.
John Cadman Jr. seems very content right now to sit behind him. He's close enough that he can make a move, but he seems to be patient enough just to be waiting this out.
Okay, now I think maybe this is exactly what John Cadman Jr., though, has been plotting. He wants a victory in Montreal. Not to say that young David Empringham doesn't, but let's have a view from the rear as Cadman makes a move.
Side by side. And it's not going to make it on the outside, Jim. No way.
No, in fact, look at this. He may go into, no, he does not go into the wall, but a moment there of concern for John Cadman Jr. It was a daring move on his part, but not quite the place in the track he should have done that.
John Cadman Jr. won his very first race in this series last year. He's been making steady progress.
Well, he likes the big crowds. That win was at the Molson Indy in Toronto. He'd love to do it in front of a Formula One crowd. And look at Kenny Weldon get up on the grass there. He's got a very determined charge going on here to grab that third spot away from Doug Beatty Jr.
David Empringham has led a lot of races, done extremely well at a lot of different tracks, and been very successful. He is not going to be deterred by...
I hate to say this, Eric. I think I see a black flag waving here. Okay, and I'm sure that's for David Empringham. Yes, it is.
That could be.
Well, let's go back now, friends. The only thing I can think of here were the waving yellows that we had spotted earlier. Otherwise, it looks like David has done a fairly clean race. Doug Beatty Jr. again, still fighting off Kenny Weldon here as we get back to the fight for third as well. But I think this is a warning. I think they're calling Empringham in.
Yeah, a black flag. He would have to report to the pits as soon as he sees that black flag, immediately into the pits for consultation with the officials.
I don't know. They better keep an eye on young Kenny Weldon here, too. I tell you, he is getting the nose up here right under the tailpipe on Doug Beatty Jr. Doug doesn't like that. He steps on the gas a bit, tries to pull away. Kenny Weldon comes right back, though.
Perhaps this is what they've all been waiting for, some sort of incident to kind of spark them all on. And Kenny's got a fire happening right now. He's really moving. I'm
wondering if all four, well, we'll even include Rob Fellows here back in 5th place, and Peter Cohen of Montreal is running in 6th. You're right. We're getting down to the crunch of this race. Now they got to start getting serious if they're going to make the podium.
He's coming up to that pit area right now, to the flag stand, where he should, if indeed it was a black flag for him, he should be seeing it coming up here now.
The ring car with John Cadman Jr. running in 2nd spot, about 3 car lengths back. It is hot and heavy as they come through the corner. Then Doug Beatty Jr., Ken Weldon. There is David Empringham out front in the number 2 Motomaster entry. Is he going to acknowledge? He goes by one of the back markers, and no, he takes the corner, and he's going to cut through here one more time.
He has not gone into the pits, and here's that black flag again.
Look at this. They're showing it to number 2. Definitely it is for David Empringham. The black flag is out. Has David even spotted it this time? I would think as you get to the end of a race, one would tend to, by in error, not have caught those.
Let's check the standings after 17 laps completed. Only 3 laps to go. David Empringham still leads with that black flag situation still unresolved. Frank Aller sitting in 8th spot, our Western champion, Robin Buck in 10th. We'll be back with more.
Hi, I'm Bobby Rahal. Stay tuned for more of the GM Motorsports Hour.
Welcome back. It's round 2 of the Players Limited GM Motorsports Series Eastern Division here in Montreal. The race leader is David Embringham, but he has been black flagged. We haven't had a response yet from the ASN officials. We've had no response yet from David Embringham.
And if Embringham does head into the pits with only 3 laps left, John Cadman Jr. will inherit the lead. He'd be more than happy right now to sit back and just wait for that to happen.
And look at this fight for 3rd place. I can't get over it. Kenny Wilden in the tied bounce car all over Doug Beatty Jr. And he'll do nothing but gain as well. In fact, David Embringham does acknowledge this black flag, but will he? That's our drama here in the closing moments of this event as we hone in on Kenny Wilden running in 4th place. There's David Embringham still running out in front. He's sticking with the course. John Cadman behind him. Still Doug Beatty Jr. in 3rd spot. It's a beautiful fight out front. And this may go right down to the checkered flag, but then what will happen?
I'm just assuming that if David Embringham does head into the pits, it'll be a stop-and-go penalty. They'll stop him for a couple of seconds. He'll be out, but you know what? His race will be done. He will no way have enough time to catch the leaders.
David Embringham, the race leader's by. There's Ken Wilden again. The orange car peeking to the inside. Still wondering when Kenny is going to make his move. Young John Cadman Jr. now right up in the tailpipe of David Embringham. He may have a go and try to get by anyway.
Maybe he's decided that David Embringham has not seen the black flag, or he's not ever going to, and he says, I better make a move now, or that'll be it.
You know, I talked about how intense this racing can be, and the fact is, as we've already pointed out, maybe even Cadman has not particularly noticed that flag. Let's see what happens. Go in car with John Cadman Jr. coming around. If David's going to acknowledge this situation, he would have to do it, I would think, on this pass. It's a little late in the event. He does! He heads off to the pits.
And look at this, number 71, John Cadman Jr. off the road in that very car. Look at all the rocks and debris coming on.
And look at this. In the meantime, Doug Beatty Jr. and Kenny Wilden have flown by. Now we watch. Look at this. David Embringham grabs it. A stop there. And then he waved off one more time. How many spots has he lost? Embringham back into the race, but Doug Beatty Jr. is the brand new race leader.
Kenny Wilden grabs 2nd spot. Here we go. David Embringham stopped in the wrong spot the first time around. His penalty is over. With he's out there, he will not be able to catch the leaders.
That is what we would call a double stop and go. We've got to replay this whole situation here one more time. It certainly caught John Cadman Jr. off guard. He almost followed David into pit row.
Yeah, that's what he looked like he was doing. He just went a little bit too far into that corner. Lost it here. You can see him hit into that gravel pit and kicking up a lot of debris into that corner.
Trust young John Cadman Jr. He does not back off at all. He's not going to let this car settle in the dust here at Montreal. He just powers it out of there. This has got to say an awful lot about the integrity of these Camaros. The car held up beautifully, and I think John's back in 4th place. Yes, indeed. There's Rob Fellows, who did get by him.
These gravel pits are supposed to stop the cars. It didn't work this time.
Doug Beatty Jr., the new race leader, he has got to be ecstatic. But now, can this young man not panic? Can he hold off Kenny Wilden, an equally young man, equally hungry in this event at Montreal?
That beautiful number 17 Tide car, the big orange bounce entry, is really moving up.
Okay, you want to check driver progression in our Players Limited GM Motorsport charts. Let's look at this one. After 18 laps, here's what's happened.
Yeah, these drivers came here to race. They've seen some serious action. Look at Wade Lee, one of our Western stars, from 23rd to 14th. John Kyle Jr., 29th to 21st.
Back to the race activity. Doug Beatty Jr. leads in Montreal. Ken Wilden is on him. Rob Fellows sitting back in 3rd. And in 4th place, having gone a little bit astray, John Cadman Jr. But still a factor as they fight their way toward a checkered flag. And they've still got a little ways to go as John comes up and into the corner. And Peter Cohen of Montreal not too far behind John Cadman Jr. at this point.
And what a bonus day for number 11, Doug Beatty Jr. and number 17, Kenny Wilden, who inherited 2nd spot.
I tell you, that David Embringham pulling off for the stop and go really threw everyone off, I think, psychologically. Certainly, most of all, it was John Cadman Jr. pretty badly affected by it all. But Doug Beatty Jr. now wants to remain in charge. I still can't get over Kenny Wilden, though. He's sitting here in 2nd place. He's had nothing but problems throughout this entire day, qualified beautifully. But look at this. He is going to end up on that podium after all. Mind you, it's not over till it's over.
He's never won a race either, so he's got to be hungry, and in front of this huge crowd here in Montreal, this would be a perfect victory.
Comes right up on Doug Beatty Jr. now as they come back to this trickiest part of the course, and I'll tell you, if they get through the rubble here, and they did, okay, they're fine. Here we are. Last lap signal comes out. Can Doug Beatty Jr. hang on to this? Is Kenny Wilden going to make a move, or will they take each other out?
We're going to find out who has brakes left, who has tires left, and who has enough strength left
Well, look at this. A dramatic move. In fact, a bonsai move from Ken Weldon. He was bobbing back and forth and then charge. I don't think he braked at all in that corner.
Absolutely beautiful. Here's an in-car shot now with Beatty Jr., number 11, as we watch them go into this corner. Beautiful piece of driving.
Okay, Doug Beatty Jr. now is this going to be his dramatic move? I don't know. These two spend a lot of their time training young people how to drive. Boy, they're showing how to drive here today in Montreal. Actually, now the Weldon is by, it looks like he's running away by a car length or so.
Perhaps Doug Beatty Jr. was holding him up just a little bit. Now he's got a clear road ahead of him.
Here comes Kenny Weldon. Will this be victory number 1 for the former Rookie of the Year? Well, Doug Beatty would not like that to be the story. Let's not forget Rob Fellows is still sitting here in 3rd spot, and John Cadman Jr. just a little further back and forth in this final lap. I'll tell you this, Doug Beatty Jr. is taking an awful lot of curbing too in this desperate charge to regain his position from Ken Weldon. But Ken Weldon, this distance remains constant.
No, it doesn't look like Doug Beatty Jr. is really close enough to make any kind of move on number 17, Kenny Weldon.
Gains a little bit in the corners, but I think he's going to lose it again once they get into a straightaway. Actually, Doug dropping off the tempo a little bit, and Kenny Weldon quite secure once he gets some ground in front of him.
For this big orange tide entry, what's going through Kenny Weldon's mind? He's never been in this position before.
I don't think so. He must be saying to himself, I wish we had the microphone going in this young man's car, because I know he's got to be yelling and screaming and urging himself on, because it's just the way he reacts and responds in a race.
It's got to be a very proud moment for the entire team and for Kenny Weldon himself. You know, they had some luck inheriting some spots, but that was a beautiful piece of driving.
Here they are. They're coming down the front straight now, and the checkered flag is up for Kenny Weldon. Weldon has got a victory, and of all things, in front of the Formula One crowd in Montreal.
The number 1 win, his first ever win, and it takes place here in Montreal. Beautiful job.
Oh, look at this. Frank Allers, the number 12 car. Here we are on the final lap. He goes off. Let's go in car with Frank and see what happened.
Yeah, closing moments of this race. And again, that debris, that was where number 87, Paul Duckworth, went off earlier. Just hit the debris and kind of parked it there against the wall.
Isn't that a shame? Frank Allers was running in 6th spot. He was trying to make a charge on Cohen, and here are the winners. Arms waving out of that car. Strong fist from Kenny Weldon. Let's have a look at this one more time. There's the bobbing and the weaving, and then just a charge.
If you notice here, Kenny Weldon just taps the corner, the inside of Doug Beatty Jr.'s car. Beatty almost kept him on the track at that point.
You know what? I was going to say that if Doug had just let Kenny go, he could well have flown off there. Here he is. He's back. He did not fly off. He flew on to the top of the victory stand today. Well, the young man out of Burlington, Ontario, working a beautiful dry track, a nice sunny day, but a lot of debris on that track, and he's got a victory.
He's got quite an impressive record here in Montreal. Finished 2nd last year. You know, he started the season off already. The number 1 race in Mosport, came 7th. Not a bad start for Kenny Weldon. The team has got to be happy. You know, this has got to be a long time coming. He started back in '89.
Look at this. He's taking the whole team around for the victory lap. In fact, they want to do this circuit just one more time, kind of show off the Tide Bounce sponsorship, obviously, here on number 17. But when you consider the fact he fell back as deep as 11th in this field, it's amazing. We'll be right back. Jim Paulson back with Eric Hollow in our broadcast booth here at the Players Limited GM Motorsport Series 1 in Montreal. There's Tom Moser of Players just coming up to congratulate our race champion, Kenny Wilden, today. And his team all gathered around him. There's Alan Chapman. Everyone excited about this win today, Eric.
There is our race winner, number 17, Kenny Wilden. Doug Beatty Jr. finishing second, Rob Fellows third, Peter Cohen from Montreal finishing fifth, Kevin Dowler sixth, David Empringham finishing ninth. And we've got a rookie in the number 15th spot. Normand Boyer finished in there. For those wondering about our defending champion, Richard Spenard of the number 1 Motomaster car, he started at the back of the grid, got as high as 10th spot, hit a wall, ended up finishing 22nd. Now let's go down to the winner's podium with Jim Paulson and Kenny Wilden.
The team was just perfect this weekend. We got bumped back to probably 10th or 11th on the first. Cadman had gone off and bumped me out way out wide onto the grass, and I thought, boy, it's gonna be hard getting it back. And I knew I had the fast car. The crew just said, just stay calm and be patient. And sure enough, it came to us. The race came to us.
The Empringham thing catch you by surprise, or?
Well, a little bit. I didn't see it happen, to tell you the truth. I was cutting some corners here and there. I was a little worried the black flag was going to be for me, but it was nice to see the yellow come out, because otherwise I don't think we would have caught those guys. And then Dave wasn't paying attention, didn't see the flags. Cadman wiped out, and then I had to get by Doug Beatty, and he ran a great race.
So after 2 events, Rob Fellows leads with 200 points, Kenny Wilden second, Terry Betts sits in 5th spot, David Empringham back in 6th, and look at Richard Spenard sitting in 8th spot overall in the standings.
Well, this event has been more than exciting in Montreal. How many new winners will we have in 1991? Do stay tuned in our GM Motorsport Hour. I'm Jim Paulson on behalf of Eric Hollow and our entire GM Motorsport Hour crew, bidding you farewell from Montreal.
This is the GM Motorsport Hour. Brought to you by Players Limited, General Motors of Canada Limited, Quality GM Parts, the expert choice, and by Sony, the one and only.
This program is copyright. Any reproduction in whole or in part is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of the GM Motorsport Hour.